All right. Well, welcome back, everybody, to another reading of Wuthering Heights. I think we're getting closer and closer to the end of this novel. I'm definitely curious as to how this is going to kind of come to a close and get to the head and kind of where things are going to end up. I'm having a bad feeling that this book is not going to be ending on a really good note. I think it's going to be ending on a very sad note. So last time we read, we had Mr. Linton's daughter, Catherine, which is Catherine the Second. She has grown feelings for her cousin Linton, who is Heathcliff's son, and she has been writing him, corresponding with him, and then Mrs. Dean, who we've been learning a lot from about Mr. Heathcliff and the Earnshaws and everybody in between, is kind of ratted her out in a way, kind of like said, hey, Catherine the Second, I know what you're doing here, and I don't approve of you talking to this boy, your cousin. They're literally cousins. So they're first cousins, they're not second cousins, they're first cousins, and they're growing kind of like attached to each other. And so Nellie is very against that, and Nellie is Mrs. Dean. Mrs. Dean is the housekeeper for Mr. Lockwood, but she's been the housekeeper at Wuthering Heights before, and she's been the housekeeper for Mr. Linton. So it's kind of jumping around a little bit, and Mrs. Dean is telling her story to a Mr. Lockwood who is living on the land and renting from Mr. Heathcliff. He's renting Thorn the Grange. We'll just call it the Grange because it's easier. And that's kind of what's happening right now. So we'll see where the story goes. I'm very interested. I have a feeling that Catherine II may marry her cousin, and then her cousin's going to die because he's very sick to begin with. But I think it's going to be pretty bad how it's all going to go down. So that's kind of where we are. And yeah, so let's see how the story unfolds. And I do also want to mention that this is my first time reading this novel. It is not something that I expected, and it's not the easiest of reads. So please don't judge me too harshly as I read through it, and I try to do different voices or tones with my voice because there are multiple characters, and I want to make it easy for everyone to kind of understand who's talking. So please don't hold that against me. And yeah, so let's go from there and see how this all works out. Chapter 22. Summer drew to an end, and early autumn. It was past Michaelmas, but the harvest was late that year, and a few of our fields were still uncleared. Mr. Linton and his daughter would frequently walk out amongst the reapers at the carrying of the last sheaves. They stayed till dusk, and then, the evening happening to be chill and damp, my master had caught a very bad cold, that settling obstinately in his lungs and confined him from the outdoors throughout the whole of the winter, nearly without any intermission. Poor Cathy, frightened from her little romance, had been considerably sadder and duller since its abandonment, and her father insisted on her reading less and taking more exercise. She had his companionship no longer. I esteemed it a duty to supply its lack as much as possible with mine, an inefficient substitute, for I could only spare 2 or 3 hours at most from my numerous diurnal occupations to follow her footsteps, and then my society was obviously less desirable than his. On an afternoon in October or the beginning of November, a fresh, watery afternoon, when the turf and the paths were rustled with moist, withering leaves, and the cold blue sky was half hidden by clouds, dark gray streamers rapidly mounting from the west and the boding abundant rain, I requested that my young lady to forego her ramble because I was certain of showers. She refused this, and I was unwilling to don a cloak, and took my umbrella to accompany her on a stroll to the bottom of the park, a formal walk which she generally affected if low-spirited, and she was invariably was when Mr. Edgar had been worse than ordinary, a thing never known from his confession, but guessed both by her and me from his increased silence and the melancholy of his countenance. She went sadly on. There was no running or bounding now, though the chill wind might have tempted her to race, and often from the side of my eye I could detect her raising a hand and brushing something off her cheek. I gazed round for a means of diverting her thoughts. On one side of the road rose a high, rough bank, where hazels and stunted oaks, with their roots half exposed, held uncertain tenure. The soil was too loose for the latter, and strong winds had blown some nearly horizontal. In summer, Miss Catherine delighted to climb along these trunks and sit in the branches, swinging 20 feet above the ground, and I, pleased with her agility and her light, childish heart, still considered it proper to scold every time I caught her at such an elevation, but so that she knew there was no necessity for descending. From dinner to tea she would lie in her breeze-rocked cradle, doing nothing except singing old songs, my nursery lore, to herself, or watching the birds, joint tenants, feed and entice their young ones to fly, or nestling with closed lids, half thinking, half dreaming, happier than words can express. "Well, look here, miss," I exclaimed, pointing to a nook under the roots of a twisted tree. "Winter is not here yet. There is a little flower up yonder, the bud from the multitude of the bluebells that clouded on those turf steps in July with a lilac mist. Will you clamber up and pluck it down for your papa?" Kathy stared for a long time at the lonely blossom trembling in the earthly shelter and replied at length, "No, I'll not touch it. But it looks melancholy, does it not, Ellen?" "Yes," I observed, "but as starved and as sackless as you. Your cheeks are bloodless. Let us take hold of hands and run. You're so low, and I dare say I shall keep up with you." "No," she repeated, and continued sauntering on, pausing at intervals to muse over a bit of moss or a tuft of blanched grass, or a fungus spreading its bright orange among the heaps of brown foliage, and ever and anon her hand was lifted to avert her gaze. "Catherine, why are you crying, love?" I asked, approaching and putting my arm over her shoulder. "You mustn't cry because Papa has a cold. Be thankful it is nothing worse." She now put no further restraint on her tears. Her breath was stifled by sobs. "Oh, it will be something worse," she said. "And what shall I do when Papa and you leave me, and I am by myself? Oh, I cannot forget your words, Ellen. They are always in my ear. How life will be changed, how dreary the world will be when Papa and you are dead." "Well, none can tell whether you won't be dying before us," I replied. "It's wrong to anticipate evil. We'll hope there are years and years to come before any of us go. Master is still young, and I am strong and hardly 45. My mother lived till 80, you know. I can't be a dame to the last. And suppose Mr. Linton will be spared till he saw 60. That will be more years than you have counted, miss. And would it not be foolish to mourn in a calamity above 20 years beforehand?" "But Aunt Isabella was younger than Papa was, you know," she remarked, gazing up with a timid hope to seek further consolation. "Well, now, Aunt Elizabeth had not you and me to nurse her," I replied. "She wasn't as happy as her master, and she hadn't as much to live for. All you need to do is to wait well on your father and cheer him up by letting him see you cheerful, and avoid giving him anxiety on any subject, mind that, Kathy. I'll not disguise, but I might make you kill him, you know. If you were wild and reckless, and cherished a foolish, fanciful afternoon for the son of a person who would be glad to have him in his grave, and allowed him to discover that you fretted over the separation he has judged expedient to make." "I fret about nothing on earth except Papa's illness," answered my companion. "I care nothing in comparison with Papa, and I'll never, oh never, while I have any senses, do and act or say a word to vex him. I love him better than I love myself, Ellen, and I know it by this. I pray every night that I may live after him, because I would rather be miserable than that he should be. Well, that proves that I love him better than myself." "Good words," I replied, "but deeds must prove it also. And after he is well, remember you don't forget your resolutions formed in the hour of fear." As we talked, we neared a door that opened on the road, and my young lady, lightening to sunshine again, climbed up and seated herself on the top of the wall, reaching over to gather some hips that bloomed scarlet on the summit branches of the wild rose trees, shadowing the highway side. The lower fruit had disappeared, but only birds could touch the upper, except from Kathy's present station. In stretching to pull them, her hat fell off, and as the door was locked, she proposed scrambling down to recover it. I bid her to be cautious lest she got a fall, and she nimbly disappeared. But the return was no such easy matter. The stones were smooth and neatly cemented, and the rose bushes and black stragglers could yield no assistance in that rescending. I, like a fool, didn't recollect that, till I heard her laughing and exclaiming, "Oh, Ellen, you'll have to fetch the key, or else I must run round to the porter's lodge. I can't scale the ramparts on this side." "Stay where ye are," I answered. "I'll have my bundle of keys in me pocket. Oh, perhaps I may manage to open it. If not, then I'll go." Catherine mused herself with dancing to and fro before the door, while I tried all the large keys in succession. I had applied the last, and found that none would do so. And then, in repeating my desire that she should remain there, I was about to hurry home as fast as I could, when an approaching sound arrested me. It was the trot of a horse. Kathy's dance stopped, and in a minute the horse stopped also. "Who is that?" I whispered. "Ellen, I wish you could open the door," whispered back my companion anxiously. "Oh, Miss Linton!" cried a deep voice, the rider's voice. "I'm glad to meet you. Don't be in haste to enter, for I have an explanation to ask and obtain." I shan't speak to you, Mr. Heathcliff," answered Catherine. "Papa says you are a wicked man, and you hate both him and me, and Ellen says the same." "That's nothing to the purpose," said Heathcliff, changing his tone. "I don't hate my son, I suppose, and it is concerning him that I demand your attention. Yes, you have cause to blush. 3 or 4 months since, were you not in the habit of writing to Linton, making love and play? You deserved, both of you, flogging for that. You, especially, the elder, and less sensitive, as it turns out. I've got your letters, and if you give me any pertness, I'll send them to your father. I presume you grew weary of the amusement and dropped it, didn't you? Well, you dropped Linton with it, into a slough of despond. He was in earnest in love, really, and true. As I live, he's dying for you, breaking at his fickleness. Not figuratively, but actually, though Hareton has made him a standing jest for 6 weeks, and I have used more serious measures and attempted to frighten him out of his idiocy. He gets worse daily, and he'll be under the sod before summer, unless you restore him." "How can you lie so glaringly?" she responded, and then I responded back to both of them. "Pray ride on. How do you deliberately get up such paltry falsehoods? Miss Cashy, I will knock down the lock with a stone if you don't believe that vile nonsense. Can you feel yourself? Is it impossible that a person should die for the love of a stranger?" "I was not aware there were eavesdroppers," muttered the detective villain. "Worthy Mrs. Dean. I like you, but I don't like your double-dealing," he added aloud. "How could you lie so glaringly as to affirm that I hated the poor child, and invent bugbear stories to terrify her from my door-stones? Catherine Linton, That very name warms me. My dear bonny lass, I shall be from home all this week. Go and see if I have not spoken truth. Do. There's a darling. Just imagine your father in my place and Linton in yours. Then think how you would value your careless lover if he refused to stir a step to comfort you, when your father himself entreated him. And don't from pure stupidity fall into the same error. I swear on my salvation, he's going to his grave, and none but you can save him. The lock gave way, and I issued out. I swear that Linton is dying, repeated Heathcliff, looking hard at me, and grief and disappointment are heartening to his death. Nellie, if you don't let her go, you can walk over yourself, but I shall not return till this time next week, and I think your master himself would be scarcely object to her visiting her own cousin. Come in, I said, taking Kathy by the arm and half forcing her to re-enter, for she lingered, viewing with troubled eyes the features of the speaker, too stern to express his inward deceit. He pushed his horse close, and bending down observed, Miss Catherine, I'll own to you that I have little patience with Linton, and Hareton and Joseph have even less. I'll own that he's with a harsh set. He pines for kindness as well as love, and a kind word from you would be his best medicine. Don't mind Mrs. Dean's cruel cautions, but be generous and contrive to see him. He dreams of you night and day, and cannot be persuaded that you do not hate him, since you neither write nor call. I closed the door and rolled a stone to assist the loosening lock and holding it, and spreading my umbrella, I drew my charge underneath, for the rain began to drive through the moaning branches of the trees, and warned us to avoid delay. Our hurry prevented any comment on the encounter with Heathcliff, as we stretched towards home, but I divined instinctively that Catherine's heart was clouded now in double darkness. Her features were so sad that they did not seem hers, and evidently regarded what she had heard as every syllable true. The master had retired to rest before we came in. Kathy stole to his room to inquire how he was. He had fallen asleep. She had returned and asked me to sit with her in the library. We took our tea together, and afterwards she lay down on the rug and told me not to talk, for she was weary. I got a book and pretended to read. As soon as she supposed me absorbed in my occupation, she recommenced her silent weeping. It appeared at present her favorite diversion. I suffered to enjoy it, while then I expostulated, deriding and ridiculing all Mr. Heathcliff's assertions about his son, as if I were certain she would coincide. Alas, I hadn't the skill to counteract the effect his account had produced. It was just what he intended. "Oh, you might be right, Ellen," she answered, "but I shall never feel at ease until I know, and I must tell Linton. It is not my fault that I do not write, and convince him that I shall not change." What use were anger and protestations against her silly credulity? We parted that night, hostile, but next day beheld me on the road to Wuthering Heights, by the side of my wilful young mistress's pony. I couldn't bear to witness her sorrow, to see her pale, dejected countenance and heavy eyes, and I yielded in the faint hope that Linton himself might prove, by his reception of us, how little the tale was founded on fact. Chapter 23. The rainy night had ushered in a misty morning, half frost, half drizzle, and temporary brooks crossed our paths, gurgling from the uplands. My feet were thoroughly wetted. I was cross and low, exactly the humor suited for making the most of these disagreeable things. We entered the farmhouse by kitchen way, to ascertain whether Mr. Heathcliff really were absent, because I put forth slight faith in his own affirmation. Joseph seemed sitting in a sort of elysium alone, beside a roaring fire, a quart of ale on the table near him, bristling with large pieces of toasted oat cake, and his black short pipe in his mouth. Catherine ran to the hearth to warm herself. I asked if the master was in. My question remained so long unanswered that I thought the old man had grown deaf, and I repeated it again louder. "Nay, nah," he snarled, or rather screamed through his nose. "Nay, ye might go back to where you're coming fra." "Joseph," cried a peevish voice, simultaneously with me from the inner room. "How often am I to call you? There are only a few red ashes now. Joseph, come this moment." Vigorous puffs and a resolute stare into the grate declared that he had no ear for this appeal. The housekeeper and Hareton were invisible, one gone on the errand, and the other at his work probably. We knew Linton's tone and entered. "Oh, I hope you'll die in a garret, starved to death," said the boy, mistaking our approach for that of his negligent attendant. He stopped on observing his error. His cousin flew to him. "Is that you, Miss Linton?" he said, raising his head from the arm of the great chair in which he reclined. No, don't kiss me. It takes my breath. Oh, dear me. Papa said you would call," continued he, after recovering a little from Catherine's embrace, while she stood by looking very contrite. "Will you shut the door, if you please? See, you left it open, and those detestable creatures won't bring coals to the fire. Oh, it's so cold." I stirred up the cinders and fetched a scuttle, the full myself. The invalid complained of being covered with ashes, but he had a tiresome cough and looked feverish and ill, so I did not rebuke his temper. "Well, Linton," murmured Catherine when his corrugated brow relaxed, "are you glad to see me? Can I do any good for you by being here?" "Why didn't you come before?" he said. "You should have come, instead of writing. It tired me dreadfully writing those long letters. I'd far rather would have talked to you. Now I can neither bear to talk nor anything else. I wonder, where is Zillah? Will you, Mrs. Dean, step into the kitchen and see?" I had received no thanks for my service, and being unwilling to run to and fro at his behest, I replied, "Nobody is out there but Joseph." "But I want to drink," he exclaimed, fretfully turning away. "Zillah is constantly gadding off to Gimmerton since Papa went. Oh, it's miserable, and I'm obliged to come down here. They resolved never to hear me upstairs." "Is your father attentive to you, Mr. Heathcliff?" I asked, perceiving Catherine to be checked in her friendly advances. "Attentive? He makes them a little bit more than attentive. At least," he cried. "Oh, the wretches! Do you know, Miss Linton, that brute Hareton laughs at me? I hate him. Indeed, I hate them all. They are all odious beings." Kathy began searching for some water. She lighted out a pitcher in the dresser, filled a tumbler, and brought it. He bid her to add a spoonful of wine from a bottle on the table, and having swallowed a small portion, appeared more tranquil, and said that she was very kind. "Are you glad to see me?" she asked, reiterating her former question, and pleased to detect the faint draw of a smile. Yes, I am. It's something new to hear. A voice like yours," he replied. "But I have been vexed, because you wouldn't come, and Papa swore it was owing to me. He called me a pitiful, shuffling, worthless thing, and said that you despised me, and if he had been in my place, he would have been more the master of the Grange than your father by this time. But you don't despise me, do you, miss?" "Oh, I wish you would say Catherine or Kathy, interrupted my young lady. Despise you? Oh, no. Next to Papa and Ellen, I love you better than anybody living. I don't love Mr. Heathcliff, though, and I dare not come when he returns. Will he stay away many days? Not many, answered Linton, but he goes on to the moors frequently, since the shooting season commenced, and you might spend an hour or two with me in his absence. Oh, please say that you will. I think I should not be peevish with you. You'd not provoke me, and you'd always been ready to help me. Oh, wouldn't you? Oh, yes, said Catherine, stroking his long, soft hair. If I could only get Papa's consent, I'd spend half my time with you. Oh, pretty Linton, I wish you were my brother. And then you would like me as well as your father? He observed more cheerfully. But Papa says you would love me better than him, and all the world, if you were my wife. So I'd rather you were that. No, I should never love anybody better than Papa, she returned gravely. And people hate their wives, sometimes, but not their sisters and brothers, and if you were the latter, you would live with us, and Papa would be as fond of you as he is of me. Linton denied the people ever hating their wives, but Kathy affirmed that they did, and in her wisdom instanced that his own father's aversion to her aunt. I endeavored to stop her thoughtless tongue. I couldn't succeed till everything she knew was out. Master Heathcliff, much irritated, asserted her relation was false. Papa told me, and Papa does not tell falsehoods. Because you know my Papa scorns yours, cried Linton. He calls him a sneaking fool. Catherine looked hurt. Well, yours is a wicked man, and you are very naughty to dare to repeat what he says. He must be wicked to have made Aunt Isabella leave him as she did. She didn't leave him, the boy said. You shan't contradict me. But she did, cried my young lady. Well, I'll tell you something, said Linton. Your mother hated your father. Now then. Oh, exclaimed Catherine, too enraged to continue. And she loved mine, added he. You little liar. Oh, I hate you now. She panted, and her face grew red with passion. But she did, oh, she did, sang Linton, sinking into the recess of his chair and leaning back his head to enjoy the agitation of the other disputant, who stood behind him. Hush, Master Heathcliff, I said. That's your father's tale too, I suppose. It isn't. You hold your tongue, he answered. She did. Oh, she did, Catherine. She did, I say. Catherine, beside herself, gave the chair a violent push and caused him to fall against one arm. He was immediately seized by a suffocating cough that soon ended his triumph. It lasted so long that it frightened even me. As to his cousin, she wept with all her might, aghast at the mischief she had done, though she said nothing. I held him till his fit exhausted itself. Then he thrust me away and leant his head down silently. Catherine quelled her lamentations also, and took a seat opposite, and looked solemnly into the fire. Well, now, how do you feel, Master Heathcliff? I inquired after waiting 10 minutes. I wish she felt as I do, he replied. Spiteful, cruel thing. Hareton never touches me. He has never struck me in his life, and I was better today, and there, his voice died in a whimper. But I didn't strike you, muttered Kathy, chewing her lip to prevent another burst of emotion. He sighed and moaned under great suffering and kept it up for a quarter of an hour, on purpose to distress his cousin apparently, for whatever he caught a stifled sob for her, he put renewed pain and pathos into the inflections of his voice. Oh, I'm so sorry I hurt you, Linton, she said at length, racked beyond endurance. But I couldn't have been hurt by that little push, and I had no idea that you could either. You're not much, are you, Linton? Oh, don't let me go home thinking that I have done you harm. Answer, please. Speak to me. I can't speak to you, he murmured. You've hurt me so that I shall lie awake all night, choking with this cough, and if you had it, you'd know what it was, but you'll be comfortably asleep, while I'm in agony, and nobody to be near me. I wonder how you would like to pass those fearful nights. And he began to wail aloud, for the very pity of himself. Well, since ye are in the habit of passing dreadful nights, I said, it won't be Miss who spoils your ease. You'd be the same had she never come. However, she shan't disturb you again, and perhaps you'll get quieter when we leave you. Oh, but must I go? Answered Catherine dolefully, bending over him. Do you want me to go, Linton? You cannot alter what you've done, he replied pettishly, shrinking from her, unless you alter it for the worse by teasing me into a fever. Well, then I must go, she repeated. Let me alone at last, he said. I can't bear to hear you talking. She lingered and resisted my persuasions to depart, a tiresome while, but as he neither looked up nor spoke, she finally made a movement to the door, and I followed. We were recalled by a scream. Linton had slid from his seat onto the hearthstone, and lay writhing in the mere perverseness of an indulged plague of a child, determined to be as grievous and harassing as it can. I thoroughly gauged his disposition from his behavior, and saw at once that it would be folly to attempt humoring him. Not so my companion. She ran back in terror, knelt down and cried and soothed and entreated, till he grew quiet from the lack of breath, by no means from compunction at distressing her. I shall lift him onto the settle, I said, and he may roll about as he pleases. We cannot stop to watch him. I hope you are satisfied, Miss Cathy, that you were not the person to befriend him. And you will see that his condition of health is not occasioned by attachment to you. Now then, there he is. Come away. As soon as he knows that there is nobody by to care for his nonsense, he'll be glad to lie still. She placed a cushion under his head and offered him some water. He rejected the latter and tossed uneasily on the former, as if it were a stone or a block of wood. She tried to put it more comfortably. I can't do with that, he said. It's not high enough. Catherine brought another to lay above it. Oh, but that's too high, murmured the provoking thing. Well, how must I arrange it then? She asked despairingly. He twinned himself up to her, and she half knelt by the settle, and converted her shoulder into a support. No, that will not do, I said. You'll be content with the cushion, Master Heathcliff. If Miss has wasted too much time on ye already, we cannot remain 5 minutes longer. Oh, but yes, we can. Yes, we can remain, replied Cathy. He's good and patient now. He's beginning to think that I shall have far greater misery than he will tonight, if I believe that he is the worse for my visit, and then, oh, I dare not come again. Tell the truth about it, Linton, for I mustn't come, if I have hurt you so. You must come, though, to cure me, he answered. You ought to come because you have hurt me. You know you have, extremely. I was not as ill when you entered as I am at present, was I? But you've made yourself ill by crying and being in a passion. And I didn't do it all. However, we can be friends now, and if you really want me, you should wish to see me sometimes. Are you sure? Do you really mean it? I told you I did, he replied impatiently. Sit on the settle and let me lean on your knee. That's as Mamma used to do, whole afternoons together. Sit quite still and don't talk, but you may sing a song if you can sing. Or you may say a nice, long, interesting ballad. One of those you promised to teach me, or a story. I'd rather have a ballad, though. Oh, please begin. Catherine repeated the longest that she could remember. The employment pleased both mightily. Linton would have another, and another after, notwithstanding my strenuous objections, and so they went on until the clock struck 12, and we heard Hareton in the court returning for his dinner. And tomorrow, Catherine, will you be here tomorrow? Asked young Heathcliff, holding her frock as she rose reluctantly. No, I answered, nor the next day either. She, however, gave a different response, evidently for his forehead cleared as she stooped and whispered in his ear. You won't go tomorrow, recollect that, miss, I commenced, when we were out of the house. You are dreaming of it, aren't you? She smiled. Oh, I'll take good care, I continued. I'll have that lock mended, and ye can escape by no way else. Well, I can get over the wall, she said, laughing. The Grange is not a prison, Ellen, and you are not my jailer. And besides, I'm almost 17. I'm practically a woman, and I'm certain Linton would recover quickly if he had me to look after him. I'm older than he is, you know, and wiser, less childish, am I not? And he'll soon do as I direct him, with some slight coaxing. He's a pretty little darling when he's good. Oh, I'll make such a pet of him. Oh, if he were mine. We should never quarrel, should we, after we were used to each other? Oh, please say that he will. What do you mean? You don't like him, Ellen? Like him? I exclaimed. The worst-tempered bit of sinkly slip that ever struggled into his teens. Happily, as Mr. Heathcliff conjectured, he'll not win 20. I doubt whether he'll see spring indeed, and a small loss to his family whenever he drops off. And lucky it is for us that his father took him to the kinder he was. Oh, treated for the more tedious and selfish he'll be. I'm glad you have no chance of having him for a husband, Mrs. Catherine. My companion waxed serious at hearing this speech. To speak of his death so regardlessly wounded her feelings. You know, he is younger than I, she answered after a protracted pause of meditation, and he ought to live the longest. He will. He must live as long as I do. He's as strong now as when he first came into the north. I'm positive of that. It's only a cold that ails him, the same as Papa has. You say Papa will get better, and why shouldn't he? Well, well, I cried. After all, we needn't trouble ourselves for listen, miss, and mind ye, I'll keep my word. If ye attempt going to Wuthering Heights again, with or without me, I shall inform Mr. Linton, and unless he allow it, the intimacy with your cousin must not be revived. Oh, but it has been revived, muttered Cathy sulkily. Must not be then continued, then, I said. Well, we will see, was her reply, and she set off at a gallop, leaving me to toil in the rear. We both reached home before our dinner time. My master supposed that we had been wandering through the park, and therefore he demanded no explanation of our absence. As soon as I entered, I hastened to change my soaked shoes and stockings. But sitting such a while at the Heights had done the mischief. On the succeeding morning I was laid up, and during 3 weeks I was remained incapacitated for attending to my duties, a calamity never experienced prior to that period, and never, I am thankful to say, since. My little mistress behaved like an angel in coming to wait on me, and cheer my solitude the confinement brought me exceedingly low. It is wearisome to be stirring an active body, but few have slighter reason for complaint than I had. The moment Catherine left Mr. Linton's room, she appeared at my bedside. Her day was divided between the two of us. No amusement usurped the minute she neglected her meals, her studies, and her play, and she was the fondest nurse that ever watched. She must have had a warm heart, when she loved her father so, and to give so much to me at the same time. I said her days were divided between us, but the master retired early, and I generally needed nothing after 6 o'clock. Thus the evening was her own. Oh, the poor thing! I never considered what she did with herself after tea, and though frequently, when she looked in to bid good night to me, I remarked a fresh color in her cheeks and a pinkness over her slender fingers, instead of fancying the hue borrowed from a cold ride across the moors, I laid it to the charge of a hot fire in the library. Chapter 24. At the close of 3 weeks, I was able to quit my chamber and move about the house, and on the first occasion of my sitting up in the evening, I asked Catherine to read to me, because my eyes were weak. We were in the library, the master having gone to bed. She consented rather unwillingly. I fancied in imagining my sort of books did not suit her. I bid her to please herself in the choice of what she pursued. She selected one of her own favorites and got forward, steadily about an hour. Then came frequent questions. "Ellen, are you not tired? Hadn't you better lie down now? Oh, you'll be sick, keeping up so long, Ellen." "No, no, dear, I'm not tired," I returned continually. Perceiving me immovable, she essayed another method of showing her disrelish for her occupation. It changed to yawning and stretching and, "Oh, Ellen, I'm so tired." "Well, give it over then and talk," I answered. That was worse. She fretted and sighed and looked at her watch till 8, and finally went to her room completely overdone with sleep, judging by her peevish and heavy look and the constant rubbing she inflicted on her eyes. The following night she seemed more impatient still, and on the third, from recovering my company, she complained of a headache and left me. I thought her conduct odd, and having remained alone a long while, I resolved on going and inquiring whether she were better, and asking her to come and lie on the sofa instead of upstairs in the dark. No, Catherine could I discover upstairs, and none below. The servants affirmed that they had not seen her. I listened at Mr. Edgar's door. All was silence. I returned to her apartment and extinguished my candle, and seated myself in the window. The moon shone bright. A sprinkling of snow covered the ground, and I reflected that she might, possibly, have taken it into her head to walk about the garden for some sort of refreshment. I did detect a figure creeping along the inner fence of the park, but it was not my young mistress. On its emerging into the light, I recognized one of the grooms. He stood on a considerable period, viewing the carriage road through the grounds, then started off at a brisk pace, as if he had detected something, and reappeared presently, leading Mrs. Pony, where she just was as well, and had dismounted, and was walking by its side. The man took his charge stealthily across the grass towards the stable. Kathy entered by the casement window of the drawing-room, and glided noiselessly up to where I awaited her. She opened the door gently, and slipped off her snowy shoes, untied her hat, and was proceeding, unconscious of my espionage, to lay aside her mantle, when I suddenly rose and revealed myself. The surprise petrified her in an instant. She uttered an inarticulate examination and stood fixed. "My dear Miss Catherine," I began, too vividly impressed by her recent kindness to break into a scold. "Where have you been riding at this hour? And why would you try to deceive me by telling a tale? Where have you been? Speak, child." "Oh, just to the bottom of the park," she stammered. I didn't tell a tale." "And nowhere else?" I demanded. "No," was the muttered reply. "Oh, Catherine," I cried sorrowfully, "you know what you have been doing wrong, or you wouldn't be driven to uttering an untruth to me. That does grieve me so. I'd rather be 3 months ill than hear you frame a deliberate lie." She sprang forward and burst into tears, threw her arms around my neck, and said, "Oh, well, Ellen, I was so afraid of you being angry with me," she said. "Oh, please promise not to be angry. You shall know the very truth. Oh, I hate to hide it." We sat down in the window seat, and I assured her that I would not scold, whatever her secret might be. And I guessed it, of course. So she commenced. You see, Ellen, I've been to Wuthering Heights, and Ellen, I've never missed going a day since you fell ill, except thrice before and twice after you left your room. I gave Michael Brooks and pictures and to prepare Minnie every evening and to put her back in the stable. Oh, you mustn't scold him either, mind. I was at Heights by past 6 and generally stayed till 8:30 and then galloped home. It was not to amuse myself that I went. I was often wretched all the time. Now and then I was happy once in a week, perhaps. At first I expected there would be a sad work in persuading you to let me keep my word to Linton, for I had engaged to call again the next day, and when we quitted him, but as you stayed upstairs on the morrow, I escaped that trouble, and while Michael was refastening the lock of the park door in the afternoon, I did get possession of the key, and told him how my cousin wished to visit, because he had been sick, and couldn't come to the Grange, and how Papa would object to my going, and then I negotiated with him about the pony, and he is fond of reading, and he thinks of leaving soon to get married, so he offered, and if I would lend him books out of the library to do what I wished, but I preferred giving him my own, 'cause that satisfied him better. Now, on my second visit, Linton seemed to be in lively spirits, and Zillah, their housekeeper, made us a clean room and a fine fire, and told us that, as Joseph was out for prayer meeting, and Hareton Earnshaw was off with his dogs, robbing our woods of pheasants, and I heard afterwards that we might do what we liked in there. Oh, she brought me some warm wine and gingerbread, and appeared exceedingly good-natured, and Linton sat in the armchair, and I in the little rocking chair on the hearthstone, and we laughed and talked so merrily and found so much to say. Oh, we planned where we would go and what we would do in the summer. I needn't repeat that because, well, you would call it silly. Well, now one time, however, we were near quarreling. He said that the pleasantest manner of spending a hot July day was lying from morning till evening on a bank of heath in the middle of the moors, with the bees humming dreamily about among the bloom and the larks singing high up overhead, and the blue sky and bright sun shining steadily and cloudlessly. That was his most perfect idea of heaven's happiness. Meanwhile, mine was rocking in a rustling green tree, with a west wind blowing and bright white clouds flitting rapidly above, and not only larks, but there would be throstles and blackbirds and linnets and cuckoos pouring out music on every side, and the moor seen at a distance, broken into cool, dusky dells, but close to great swells of long grass and undulating in waves, so the whole breeze in the woods and surrounding water and the whole world awake and wild with joy. He wanted all to lie in an ecstasy of peace, and all I wanted was all to sparkle and dance in a glorious jubilee. I said his heaven would be only half alive, and he said mine would be drunk. I said that I should fall asleep in his, and he said he could not breathe in mine, and began to grow very snappish with me. At last we agreed to try both as soon as the right weather came, and then we kissed each other, and then we were friends at last again. After sitting still an hour, I looked at the great room with its smooth, uncarpeted floor, and thought how nice it would be to play in. That if we removed the table and, well, I asked Linton to call Zillah in to help us, and we'd have a game at a blind man's bluff. Ooh, she would try to catch us. You used to, you know, Ellen. Well, he wouldn't play. He said no, it would be foolish, and that it wouldn't be the same. But after some convincing, he did consent to play ball with me. We found two in a cupboard, among a heap of old toys, tops and hoops, battledores and shuttlecocks. One was marked C and the other H. I wished to have the C because that stood for Catherine, and the H might be for Heathcliff, his name, but the brand came out of H, and the Linton didn't really like that. Still, I beat him constantly, and he got cross again and coughed and returned to his chair. Oh, that night, though, he easily recovered his good humor. He was charmed with 2 or 3 pretty songs. Well, your songs, Ellen. And when I was obliged to go, he begged and entreated me to come to the following evening, and I promised. Minnie and I went flying home as light as air, and I dreamt of Wuthering Heights and my sweet darling cousin till morning. On the morrow I was sad, partly because you were poorly, and partly that I wished my father knew and approved of my excursions. But it was beautiful moonlight after tea, and as I rode on, the gloom cleared. I shall have another happy evening, I thought to myself, and what delights me more, my pretty Linton will. Oh, I trotted up to their garden and was turning round to the back when that fellow Earnshaw met me, took my bridle and bid me to go by the front entrance. He patted Minnie's neck and said she was a bonny beast, and appeared as if he wanted me to speak to him. I only told him to leave my horse alone, or else it would kick him. Of course, he had to answer in his vulgar accent, "It wouldn't do much if it did," and surveyed its legs with a little smiling, "Ooh, wouldn't ye say, lassie?" I was half inclined to make it try. However, he moved off to open the door, and as he raised the latch, he looked up to the inscription above and said with a stupid mixture of awkwardness and elation, "Miss Catherine, I can read, now." "That's wonderful," I exclaimed to him. "Pray, let us hear you. You are grown clever." He spelt and drawled over the syllables the name, Hareton Earnshaw. "And the figures?" I cried, encouraging, perceiving that he came to a dead halt. "Well, I cannot tell them yet," he answered. "Oh, you dunce," I said, laughing heartily at his failure. The fool stared, and with a grin hovering about his lips and a scowl gathering over his eyes, as if uncertain whether he might not join in my mirth, whether it were not pleasant familiarity or what it really was, contempt. I settled his doubts by suddenly retrieving my gravity and desiring to walk away, for I came to see Linton, not him. He reddened and saw that by the moonlight, and dropped his hand from the latch and skulked off, a picture of mortified vanity. He imagined himself to be as accomplished as Linton had been, I suppose, because he could spell his own name, and was marvellously discomfited that I didn't think the same. "Oh, stop it now, Miss Catherine, dear," I interrupted. "I shall not scold, but I don't like your conduct there. If you had remembered that Hareton was your cousin as much as Master Heathcliff, you would have felt somehow improper it was to behave in that way. At least it was praiseworthy ambition of him to desire to be as accomplished as Linton, and probably he did not learn merely to show off to ye. Had he made him ashamed of his ignorance before, I have no doubt that he wished to remedy it, and please ye. Oh, to sneer at his imperfect attempt was a very bad breeding. Had ye been brought up in his circumstances, would ye be less rude? He was as quick and as intelligent a child as you ever were, and I'm hurt that he should be despised now, because that base Heathcliff has treated him so unjustly. Well, Ellen, you won't cry about it now, will you?" she exclaimed, surprised at my earnestness. "But wait. You shall hear if he is conned, if his A.B.C. to please me, and if it were worth while being civil to the brute." I entered, and Linton was lying on the settle, and half got up to welcome me. "Oh, I'm ill tonight, Catherine, love," he said, "and you must have all the talk and let me listen. Come and sit by me. I was sure you wouldn't break your word, and I'll make you promise again before you go." I knew now that I mustn't tease him, as he was ill, and I spoke softly, and put no questions and avoided irritating him in any way that I could have. I had brought some of my nicest books for him. He asked me to read a little of one, and I was about to comply when Earnshaw burst through the open door, having gathered venom with reflection. He advanced direct towards us and seized Linton by the arm and swung him off the seat. "Get to thy own room," he said in a voice almost inarticulate with passion, and his face looked swelled and furious. "Take her there if she comes to see thee. Thou shan't keep me out of this. Begone with ye both." He swore at us and left Linton no time to answer, nearly throwing him into the kitchen, and he clenched his fist as I followed, seemingly longing to knock me down, and I was afraid for a moment, and I let one volume fall, and he kicked it after me and shut us out. I did hear a malignity, a crackling laugh by the fire, and turning, beheld that the odious Joseph was standing, rubbing his bony hands and quivering. "Oh, were ye sure that he'd served ye yet? He's a grand lad. He's getting to straight the spirit in him. He knows ye, he knows ye weel as I do, and would have said to master yonder, yick, he made ye skiff properly. "Where must we go?" I said to my cousin, disregarding the old wretch's mockery. Linton was white and trembling, and he was not pretty then, Ellen. Oh, no, he looked frightful, for his thin face and large eyes were wrought into an expression of frantic, powerless fury. He grasped the handle of the door and shook it. Oh, it was fastened inside. "If you don't let me in, I'll kill you. If you don't let me in, I'll kill you." Well, he rather shrieked and then said, Devil, I'll kill you, I'll kill you." Joseph then uttered his croaking laugh again. "Oh, there's that ter father, ha, he cried. "There's the father we've all alas done it, and seed his side. Never heed, Hareton lad. Do not be feared, he cannot get at thee." I took hold of Linton's hands and tried to pull him away, but he shrieked so shockingly that I dared not proceed any more. At last his cries were choked by a dreadful fit of coughing, and blood gushed from his mouth, and he fell on the ground. Oh, I ran to the yard, sick with terror, and called for Zillah as loud as I could. She soon heard me, for she was milking the cows in the shed behind the barn, and hurrying from her work, she inquired what there was to do. I hadn't the breath to explain. Dragging her in, I looked about for Linton. Earnshaw had come to shouting in the mischief that he had caused, and he was then conveying the poor thing upstairs. Zillah and I ascended after him, but he stopped me at the top of the steps and said that I shouldn't go in, that I must go home. I exclaimed that he had killed Linton and that I would enter. And then Joseph locked the door, and I declared that I should do no such thing, and asked me that if I were to burn as mad as him. I stood crying till the housekeeper reappeared. She affirmed that he would be better in a bit, but he couldn't do with that shrieking and din, and she took me and nearly carried me into the house. Oh, Ellen, I was ready to tear my hair off my head. I sobbed and wept that so my eyes were almost blind, and the ruffian that you have such sympathy for stood opposite me and presumed every now and then to bid me wish it, and denying that it was his fault, and finally frightened by my assertions that I would tell my own papa that he should be put in a prison and hanged, and he commenced blubbering himself and hurried out to hide his cowardly agitation. Still, I was not rid of him at that point, when at length they compelled me to depart, and I had to... Oh, I got some 100 yards off the premises, and he suddenly issued from the shadow of the roadside and checked Minnie and took hold of me. "Miss Catherine, oh, I'm ill grieved." "But please do continue on. What happened?" And then he said to me, "Miss Catherine, it's rather too bad." Well, I gave him a cut with my whip, thinking perhaps that he would murder me at that moment, and He did let go, thundering one of his horrid curses, and I galloped home more than half out of my senses. Oh, I didn't bid you good night that evening, and I didn't go to Wuthering Heights the next. I did wish to, exceedingly so, but I was so strangely excited, and I dreaded to hear that Linton was dead. Sometimes shuddered at the thought of encountering Hareton. On the third day I took courage. At least I couldn't bear longer suspense, and I stole off once more. I went at 5 o'clock and walked, fancying I might manage to creep into the house and up to Linton's room unobserved. However, the dogs gave notice of my approach, and Zillah received me in saying that Linton was mending nicely, and showed me into a small, tidy, carpeted apartment where, to my inexpressible joy, I beheld Linton laid on a little sofa reading one of my books. But he would neither speak to me nor look at me for an entire hour. Oh, Ellen, he has such an unhappy temper. And what quite confounded me was that when he did open his mouth, it was to utter the falsehood that I had occasioned the uproar, and that Hareton was not to blame. I was unable to reply, and, except passionately, I did get up and I walked from the room. He sent after me a faint, "Catherine, Catherine," and he did not reckon on being answered so, but I wouldn't turn back, and the morrow was the second day on which I stayed at home, nearly determined to visit him no more. But I was so miserable then, going to bed and getting up and never hearing anything about him, and my resolution melted into air before it was properly formed. It had appeared wrong to make the journey once, now it seemed wrong to refrain. Michael came to ask me if that he mustn't saddle Minnie, and I said yes, and considered myself doing a duty as she bore me over the hills. I was forced to pass in front of the windows to get to the court. It was no use trying to conceal my presence. "Young master is in the house," said Zillah to me as she saw me making for the parlor. I went in, and Earnshaw was there also, but he quitted the room directly, and Linton sat in a great armchair, half asleep. Walking up to the fire, I began a serious tone, partly meaning for it to be true. "Well, see as you don't like me, Linton, and as you think I come on the purpose to hurt you, and pretend that I do so every time, this will be our last meeting. Let us say good-bye, and tell Mr. Heathcliff that you have no wish to see me, and that he mustn't invent any more falsehoods on the subject." "Sit down and take your hat off, Catherine," he answered. "You are so much happier than I, and you ought to be. Papa talks of my defects and shows enough scorn of me to make it natural that I should doubt myself. I doubt whether that I am altogether as worthless as he calls me. Frequently he does, and then I feel so cross and bitter that I hate everybody. I am worthless, and bad in temper and bad in spirit almost always, and if you choose, you may say good-bye. You'll be rid of me and an annoyance to your life. Only, Catherine, do me this justice. Believe that if I might be as sweet and as kind and as good as you are, I would be as willingly and more so than as happy and as healthy. And believe that your kindness has made me love you deeper than I deserved your love. And though I couldn't and cannot help showing my nature to you, I regret it and repent it. I shall regret and repent till I die." I felt that he spoke truth, and I felt that I must forgive him, and though he should quarrel the next moment, I must forgive him again anyway. We were reconciled at that moment, but we cried, both of us, the whole time I stayed, not entirely for sorrow, yet I was sorry Linton had distorted nature. He'll never let his friends be at ease, and he'll never be at ease himself. I had always gone to his little parlor since that night, because his father returned the day after. About 3 times, I think, we had been merry and hopeful, as we were the first evening. The rest of my visits were dreary and troubled, now with his selfishness and spite, and now with his sufferings. But I've learnt to endure the former with nearly as little resentment as the latter. Mr. Heathcliff purposely avoids me. I have hardly seen him at all. Last Sunday, indeed, coming earlier than usual, I heard him abusing poor Linton cruelly for his conduct of the night before. Oh, I can't tell how he knew of it, unless he listened. Linton had certainly behaved provokingly. However, it was the business of nobody but me, and I interrupted Mr. Heathcliff's lecture by entering and telling him so. He burst into a laugh and went away, saying he was glad that I took the view of the matter. Since then, I've told Linton he must whisper bitter things. Now, Ellen, you have heard all, and I can't be prevented from going to Wuthering Heights, except by inflicting misery on 2 people. Whereas if you'll not only tell Papa, my going need disturb the tranquillity of none. Oh, you'll not tell, will you? It will be very heartless if you do. I'll make up my mind on that point tomorrow, Miss Catherine, I replied. It requires some study, and so I'll leave you to your rest and think it over. I thought it over aloud in my master's presence, walking straight from her room to his and relating the whole story with the exception of her conversations with her cousin and any mention of Hareton. Mr. Linton was alarmed and distressed more than he would acknowledge to me. In the morning, Catherine learnt of my betrayal of her confidence, and she learnt also that her secret visits were at an end. In vain she wept and writhed against the interdict and implored her father to have pity on Linton. All she got to comfort her was a promise that he would write, and could give him leave to come to the Grange when he pleased, but explaining that he must no longer expect to see Catherine at Wuthering Heights. Perhaps he had been aware of his nephew's disposition and state of health. He would have seen fit to withhold even that slightest consolation. Whew, that was a long chapter. I feel like we got a lot out of that one. Wow. She really tried hard to be with Linton and all that. So I'm excited to see where we go from here, and is Linton going to die in the next couple chapters? Like, what's going to happen after the fact? But anyway, if you liked listening to me, read more of Wuthering Heights, please feel free to like, subscribe, or follow. I do stream every night except Mondays. So I will be reading again tomorrow at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. So if you did like that, please do like, follow, and subscribe. It does mean a lot to me, but I totally understand if you're not in the mood to. But yeah, I hope we get to see how this story concludes in the next couple days. And yeah, I'm excited to see what happens. So with that being said, I hope you all stay safe and stay geeky as always.